He had everything: wealth, fame, power, and success. People envied his life, his mansion, his luxury cars, and his designer suits. But behind that polished smile was a man who felt completely empty inside. Money could buy him comfort, but not connection. Success brought him recognition, but not love. His heart, once full of dreams, had turned cold, frozen by years of betrayal, loneliness, and pride. He had stopped believing in love long ago, thinking it was just a weakness that distracted people from their ambitions. One rainy evening, as he sat by the giant window of his penthouse, sipping his coffee and staring at the glittering city lights, he couldn't help but feel something missing. The silence of his luxurious apartment echoed louder than any noise. It was the kind of silence that reminded him of how alone he really was. No one called to ask how he was doing. No one cared beyond his bank balance or his signature. He was surrounded by people, yet utterly isolated. The next morning, as his driver took him to one of his construction sites, something unusual caught his eye. By a small roadside café, a woman was helping an old man cross the street. She wasn't dressed in anything fancy, a simple cotton dress, her hair tied loosely, her face glowing with kindness. There was something about her, something real, something pure. He didn't know why, but he couldn't look away. Later that day, he found himself stopping by that same café. It wasn't the kind of place someone like him would ever visit. No marble floors, no air conditioning, just a few wooden tables and the smell of freshly brewed tea. But for the first time, he didn't care about appearances. He just wanted to see her again. She was there, serving tea with a warm smile, laughing with the customers, and treating everyone like family. When she noticed him standing awkwardly near the door, she smiled and said, "Please, come in." Her voice was soft, genuine. It wasn't the tone of someone impressed by his wealth. She didn't recognize him as the millionaire everyone else admired. She just saw a man who looked tired. He ordered tea, and they talked. She told him about her life, how she had lost her parents early, worked day and night to keep the cafe running, and still found time to feed hungry kids from the nearby orphanage. Her eyes sparkled with warmth when she spoke, and her laugh felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. He hadn't smiled like that in years, but somehow, she made him forget who he was, the businessman, the tycoon, the millionaire. For the first time, he felt seen as a person, not as a wallet. Days turned into weeks. He started visiting the cafe often, finding excuses just to be near her. Sometimes he'd help her serve tea or clean the tables, something he'd never done in his life. The more time he spent there, the more he realized how different her world was from his, simple, yet rich with love and meaning. One day, he finally told her who he was. Her eyes widened, not in admiration, but in disbelief. "You're that businessman everyone talks about?" she asked softly. He nodded, unsure of what she'd say next. She smiled and said, "So what? You're still the same person who drinks tea and listens to people's stories. Titles don't matter here." That moment hit him harder than any business deal ever had. For the first time, someone saw beyond his money. She saw his soul. But life has a way of testing what's real. His friends, his business partners, even the media started to notice his unusual visits. Rumors spread fast that the great millionaire had fallen for a poor cafe girl. His reputation, his pride, his image, everything was questioned. Some called it madness, others called it weakness. He was torn. A part of him wanted to protect his status, but another part, a deeper, more human part, told him that maybe this was the only real thing he had ever found. When the pressure became too much, he stopped visiting for a while. He threw himself back into work, attending meetings, signing contracts, smiling for cameras, pretending everything was fine. But it wasn't. His world felt colder than ever. The laughter, the warmth, the meaning, all gone. One evening, he returned to the cafe, hoping she'd still be there. But it was closed. A sign on the door read, "Closed for renovation." His heart sank. He asked around and found out that she had sold the cafe to help the orphanage get new classrooms and better food. She had given up her livelihood to help others. That night, something inside him changed. He realized that she had taught him what true wealth really meant. Not the money in your account, but the love you give, the lives you touch, the kindness you spread. Without thinking twice, he drove to the orphanage. There she was, sitting with the kids, helping them with their homework, her smile brighter than ever. He walked up to her, holding a small box. "I've made a lot of mistakes," he said quietly. "I thought money made me powerful, but you showed me that love makes us human. You taught me that warmth is the greatest form of wealth. He opened the box. Inside was not a diamond ring or a set of car keys, but the deed to a brand new cafe he had built in her name, right next to the orphanage. This time, he said, it's not a business investment. It's a gift, from my heart. Her eyes filled with tears. She didn't care about the cafe, the building, or the gesture. What touched her most was that he had changed. Not for show, not for fame, but because he finally understood. She smiled and whispered, you don't have to be rich to be kind. But kindness makes you richer than any fortune ever could. They rebuilt the cafe together, a place where anyone, rich or poor, could come and share stories over tea. The millionaire often worked behind the counter, wearing a simple apron, laughing with children, and serving customers with the same warmth she once showed him. People who used to fear him now saw him differently, not as a businessman, but as a man with a heart. The media tried to make it a sensation again, but he didn't care anymore. For once, his happiness didn't depend on headlines. It came from the laughter echoing inside that little cafe, from the sparkle in her eyes, from the joy of giving back. Months later, during a small community event, a reporter asked him, you had everything, luxury, status, influence. What made you give it all up? He smiled, looking at her standing beside him, serving tea with that same radiant smile. I didn't give anything up, he said softly. I just found something money could never buy, warmth, love, and peace. And in that simple cafe, where two very different worlds met, a new story began, not of wealth, but of warmth. Not of status, but of soul. Because in the end, real love doesn't care about who you are, what you own, or how much you have. Real love sees your heart. And sometimes, that's the only kind of richness that truly matters.